I'm Willard L. Dale.
Willard?
Willard L. Dale.
And your middle name is?
Lewis.
Lois. What is your birthday?
My birthday, 9th month, 16th day, 1931.
31. So you have the same age.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Eugene. So you are 90-year-old?
I will be next September.
Next September?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to add one more year to you.
It's getting there fast enough.
And where were you born?
I was born in Buckland, Missouri.
Could you spell it?
Bucklin, Missouri, M.O.
And tell me about your family background when you were growing up, your father, mother, and siblings.
My father, Samuel Dale, was a farmer. He worked on the WPA.
What is WPA?
It was a public work assistance set in by, I do believe it was Roosevelt.
Yeah, Franklin Roosevelt.
And he built roads. They worked in the rock quarries. Then he went to work on a turkey farm. We moved to the city called Memphis, and that's where I went to high school. That's where I went to grade school for 1 year. The rest of my time I was in grade school, public schools out in little buildings. My mother was born in Buckland, Missouri, to a family of 12.
Mm-hmm.
There was 3 girls and the rest of them was boys. I've seen my grandfather one time. I've seen my grandmother one time. My dad was born in what they call Trenton, Missouri. And they both expired from this world some 40-some years ago. But anyway, I have a brother and I have one sister, which they both stayed and lived in Missouri. My brother served in the Marine Corps for 2 years, and then he got out. My sister worked as a nurse in a nursing home. Both of them. My brother was married. He had 4 boys. My sister never was married. And I joined the Marine Corps after I went through high school.
No, you're going too fast, okay?
Okay. I went through grade school and the country.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. You mentioned that you were in the grade school, right?
Yes.
Tell me about it, because not many people know, because it's a long time ago, and it was especially during the Great Depression. So tell me about the grade school.
Grade schools were 1 through 8. We did not have kindergarten at the time I was going through school. I started the school when I was, I was born in 31. I started in school when I was 6, because of my birthday in September. The state of Missouri said you had to be 6 when you started. And so September, when we started the school in Missouri, I was 6, and so I was allowed to go. They've changed that many times later, but all of our schools, when we went to a country school, they were country. They were out in the country. And they had 1 through 8, one teacher.
One teacher.
One teacher taught all the classes.
How is that possible?
And, well, anyway, most of the schools at that time was running someplace between, let me get my memory right, most of our grade schools were probably someplace in the neighborhood of, 18, 19 people. And so she was able to teach 2 classes, and then, of course, we learned, as we progressed from 1st grade, we went to 2nd grade, and then we went to 3rd grade. And about the time we went to 3rd grade, the school system, whether it's in Missouri or whether it went through Iowa, they decided that if you were so aged, you would skip a grade and go back a grade, which is kind of confusing. Well, they kept me in the 4th grade for 2 years because I was the only one in the 4th grade. And I am left-handed. The teacher took my pencil out of that and put it in this hand. And at that time, they could slap you, do anything they wanted to. There wasn't no such thing. If they wanted to put a belt on your seat of your pants, you could. And when you got home, you got another one. It was all about reading, writing, arithmetic, history. None of this other things. Everything had to be in. Sometimes you had to go up on the board and put things on the board, what the teacher wanted you to put up there. It was all individually. When I was in the 7th grade, there was 14 of us in the class in the whole school. And she would have the oldest person, and I was the oldest one, and she would have me take care of the stove. We always had a stove. And on top of this stove, which we had to stand on a chair, we always had a pot of beans.
Huh.
And she provided that for dinner. So we didn't have to bring her dinner.
Wow.
But when we got through that year, the teacher, she was a farmer, then a teacher. Well, I was taught well about our history, about our government, and how the government was supposed to work. In reality, I was taught how to write, to spell, and you didn't use a paper to add it all up, you used it up here. And this was back in the 40s, in the 50s.
I mean, think about it. Putting 1 to 8th grade in one classroom and taught by the one teacher.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible thing to think about it in this society right now, right?
Yes, but we learned.
Yeah.
We were taught by a teacher with all kinds of methods of teaching. And
So
when she taught you something, you knew it. It was not something just like our spelling. When I left one grade to another grade, I could look at my words and then I knew them and I could spell them. Well, that teacher we went to was a different teacher, and so she instead of letting them go down like I learned them, she would skip around to see if you knew them.
Wow.
Which if you learn out all of them from Adam to whatever, and then you go down and write them down. She said, I'm not going to do that. Said, you learn them, then I'm going to tell you how. I want to tell you what word to spell.
Wow.
And so reading, we had to read so many books. We had a small library in the last school I was in. But we did read, we had books, and they were all furnished by the schools. The parents didn't have to afford a book. Now, your grade schools, we were heated by wood. And we had outside toilets. We didn't have the inside plumbing. We had a well to have for water. And everybody had a recess at the same time, and everybody went outside to play. Whether it was cold or whatever it is, we went out and we played together. We were taught how to play together. I don't know that they are that way. I'm sorry, this is my own opinion today.
Oh, I
But
absolutely agree with you. Even though this is about the Korean War and the veteran interview, but we are learning a lot. Young generations will learn a lot about school system in 1940s, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing back then, we had a school board just like they have today. I don't know if they were elected as a school board like they are today, but we had a school board. And the teachers were paid, and don't a whole lot of money, because my wife was a school teacher and she used to teach school.
Ah.
And so for 9 months, they were employed. Then they were back home, and most of them they had a husband at home. But none of them that I went through, the 8 years that I went through, were married and had any children that attended the same school that we had a teacher from.
Got it. So let's stop here because it's about the Korean War.
Okay.
Were you a good student?
I was until I got to high school.
What high school did you graduate?
I went to high school called Memphis, Missouri, Memphis High in Memphis, Missouri.
Missouri?
Yeah.
What is the name of it?
Memphis High.
Memphis High.
It closed down in about 1958, 59, 60. It closed down. It is now a construction building.
Did you graduate 1949?
I went there from 48 to 51. I graduated 51.
And let me ask you this question. Did you learn anything about Korea at the time?
at that time there was a draft.
No. From your school, did
No,
you
no,
learn
no,
anything
no,
about?
no. Our government was the United States government, and to the best of my knowledge, we never had any government about Korea, China, any one of them. I don't remember it. If they taught it, I don't remember it. We did have geography and stuff like that, but for its history of your country or any other country, I learned more after I got out of school about the countries than I did in my school. Now, when we went to high school, I don't remember having history. We had history, but it did give us a history of individual countries like Japan, China, and Turkey, and stuff like that. I don't know if we had a map.
Okay. So, Korean War broke out June 25th of 1950 when you were in high school.
Yep.
How did you know about it?
There was a draft. My brother got drafted in 1950. He went into the Korean War. He was at boot camp for 8 weeks and then through that and went to Korea. And in 1951, I graduated from high school. I worked a year on a turkey farm. And the following May, I called the recruiter out of St. Louis and told him I want to go in the Marine Corps because my brother was in the Marine Corps.
What was your brother's name?
Martin
Dale.
Dale, yes.
And when did he come back from Korea?
He came back from Korea in 1950. Let's see, 53.
51.
He came back in January of 59.
59?
Well, let's see.
No.
No, wait, 50. I was 55. No, I went in 51. He came back 53. It was 53. He came back in 54.
4.
Yeah.
And what did he say about the Korean War to you?
Nothing, because when he was drafted, and then I worked with my father for a year, and then I went in the Marine Corps in May of 27th of 52, and I went through boot camp, which was 8 weeks.
When did you join the military?
I joined May the 27th, 1952.
52. Where?
I joined in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. And
from there, I went to San Diego, California.
When did you leave to Korea?
I left there from the United States on about the 12th day of November, aboard a USS APA ship, and rode for 19 days and landed in Korea on the 28th day of November, 1952. And believe me, I remember that because it was 14 below zero.
Oh. Where did you land? In Incheon or Busan?
Busan, I think it was. Well, they had a tent for about 18 people, 1,800 people was in it. It was large enough. There was 5 stoves in that. I remember that night, and they were all red. The next morning, we woke up at 5 o'clock. They had food for us, and they brought us all the winter clothing. That same day, we got on board a train that had no windows on it. We rode about 40 miles on that train. We seen the Korean kids standing out in the snow, and some of them barefooted. Some of them were selling booze. Some people bought it. And when we got there, we were taken off the train, and we put on 6x6s without no covers on them. And we rode another 7 miles. We got off there, we walked about 500 yards, and we were put into another tent, and our names were called off, and we were sent to our duty stations, which was just a little ways away from us. That night I walked up 2.5 miles up a hill in a trench with the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, and weapons company. and we could see the lights of the peace talks. We could see the North Korean trenches.
Do you remember the camp name?
My name, their name.
No, camp name, where you were.
The camp.
Oh, well, the only thing I can tell you, I can always remember there was a river that running right down from out of wherever there was a run down there, together blindfolded.
So during your service near to Panmunjom, right?
Yes.
And Imjin River,
Yeah.
were there any serious battle?
The only thing we had was we had one morning that we fought or overlaid the people for about 6.5 hours of weapons, using our weapons to keep them down. I can't tell you whether I shot somebody or not. I don't know that. Otherwise, our guns were firing. The 50s were hitting the trenches, the back. I don't know what they called them, the rockets, the 50 calibers, whatever there was, that had the 25 ones in a bracket. They could get them all off at one time. That was artillery, though. That wasn't us. That was artillery. That was a different organization, and they were behind us, and they were firing. And then, of course, we had the Marine Corps Air Wing support on that on the day, and I think the reason we had it at that time was because there was a movement, and I think this movement, to the best of my knowledge, was top secret. Mm-hmm. And why it was done, but I do know that's most of the time we would send people out onto our outposts to make sure there was no activity out there, and we did send the Turkish people went out in front of us, and they would come back, and so there was enemies out there. They were trying to get. So I can only say that basically face to face, I never seen one to my face.
How close was it between you and the enemy? Like 1 kilometer?
Well, let's say from where we were at on the hill to where they were at on the hill,
Yeah.
was probably 700, maybe 7,000 yards. It was quite a ways across there. But where the hill was, where we were at, where our bunkers was, we probably less than 500 yards.
What were you thinking there when you were serving there? What were you thinking? Did you ever ask yourself, why am I here?
Well, basically, we had some people there, and one of them said to the other, "Do you ever think you're afraid?" And when I left there, I come to really realize that there was not a soul over there that wasn't scared.
I'm sorry?
Wasn't scared, wasn't afraid. They had a fear.
Of course, it's a war.
And so when you think what you've done, when you're young, you signed a contract, and you go where they send you, and of course I wanted to go there because my brother was there. And we ate dinner Christmas Day in 52. We had dinner there together.
Really? You met your brother in Korea?
Yes, yeah.
Tell me about it. Where?
Well, we had a mess hall which was about 2 miles away from the line, and we got to go back there on Christmas Day. They took us back there. We walked back. We didn't. Nobody rode us. We walked back to their mess hall. And,
how did you meet your brother?
Well, he was in the company, and he knew I was in the company, so they called each other. The company officers called each other on their phones. And so my brother said, well, he'd like to meet us at the mess hall, so I met him at the mess hall. And guess what? 2 months later, he left Korea, because at that time, 2 brothers could not serve in the same area. See, he was in Alpha Company. He was a lineman. He was a grunt. And so was I, and basically. But what he was doing, he was going out to them, and I was just the support group behind them. So
this is very interesting. I did a lot of interviews, but I don't think there were several cases where the 2 brothers met together during the war. But you are one of few those people.
yeah.
How was it?
we enjoyed ourselves, and of course he walked to our mess hall. But when the chaplain seen us eating together, well, he come back and asked us, "Are you brothers?" And I, well, yeah, you know. And so he asked my brothers, "Where are you at?" And he told him, and he said, "Now don't you go back. We'll get you back on a Jeep," because they had a Jeep over there, so they sent him back in the Jeep. And so then he got orders to go back 2 months before his time was up, and he used to tell me when we were both at home, he said, "Why did you come?" I said, "I just want to come and see where you was at, because I was your younger brother."
Come on, you're only talking about you guys, but think about your mom and your father. When they check you out to the Korean War, two of them together, what do you think?
Well,
If you were the parents, and would you sign off?
well,
If your two children, two boys, wanted to go to Iraq, for example, would you sign them off?
if my boys, which I have two, if they wanted to go, they could go. I'd sign them, yes.
It's amazing. So,
Well, here's my concept. We're in this country. We're citizens of this country, and we have a duty to this country. And my two boys and my girls have duty to this country. To be loyal to this country, if nothing else. And if that's what it takes for them to go to some place to help us have a freedom that we have, then I'm saying, you know, I mean, the only thing I don't think I could do is I don't think I could take my son, put him on a cross like what Christ did and died for everybody. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was willing to sacrifice my life. And when I got married, I was still in the service, and my wife and kids, they done what they had to do while I was gone.
you were married at the time?
Not when I went to Korea, but when I went to Nam, I was married and had children.
Yeah. So, were there any dangerous moment that you could have been killed during your service in Korea?
I suppose up until after the peace, what was it, July, the peace treaty was signed.
July 27.
I think at any time. In fact, I think it was in April of that year that it was March that year. It was cold outside, then it was snowing, and we had a little oil stove in our bunker that kept our bunker, the four people lived in our bunker, kept us warm. And that little stove, for some reason or other, decided to smoke. Mm-hmm. And so I rolled out of my top rack, and the guy rolled out of his, and we took the little stove outside. Took that thing apart, we couldn't find one thing wrong with it. Not one thing. Put it back together. It was very simple to take apart. You just took the top off of it, you had a wick, right?
Yeah.
Tuck it back in, had plenty of fuel in it. Lit it, quit smoking. So I decided I'll go back to bed. So he did. So as I went back to bed, my flight jacket that we always wore outside was laying there on my bed. And I seen something about this long that was in my jacket.
What is that?
It was a 50 caliber projectile.
Huh.
That when I got out of my bed, there was an aperture going out to the outside for our air. It had to come through that aperture. It hit my bed.
Whoa.
And because of that little stove, I rolled out of the rack. We take it care. I don't know when to come in there. Nobody else does. But I know that if I'd been there, I'd have been dead or paralyzed.
I mean, is that enemies?
That was the enemy.
Whoa. And you didn't hear sound?
Mm-mm. Now, you're in this bunker, right? And you've got about 4 layers of sandbags on top of you, 4 layers of sandbags around you, and you've got beams in there about this big around, 12 foot long.
It's hard to believe, okay?
and the only light you had in there was 2 candles.
Huh.
So I'm just saying, how do you know?
What was the most rewarding moment during your service in Korea?
I could say just the time I spent there and the time that I was active with them, what I had to do and stand my watch and be very careful about it. And I think my time there taught me something.
What?
Respect and to do your job like you're supposed to be doing. Not half do your job. And again, we did it because our government wanted to help Korea. They wanted them to have people that have the same freedom we had. And so basically all I'm saying is that I served my country, and today my country served me.
What was your rank at the time?
I was a PFC, a private first class. I got promoted while I was there, and I did not know it till I got to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
How much were you paid monthly?
$79 a month.
79? What did you do with that money?
I sent it home
To whom?
to my mother and dad. Got home, I thought I had money, and they used it, so that's fine. No, I guess we drawed, what is it, $15 extra a month for overseas pay at that time?
Yeah,
I think it was $15. Now, when I went to Nam, I was drawing $25 a month extra.
So your parent used that all?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, what can you spend that kind of money for? When you,
But, others saying to me that it's been saved so that they could buy like a...
well, I thought my family was saving mine, but my dad was working on a farm, and we just bought a car before I went into service, so he was taking my money and paying for the car.
Okay. You did good for your family.
Yeah.
So, tell me about this. Were you able to go to Seoul or other city rather than your camp?
After we got through, we moved back to do our time. We still had to go up back and forth and dig. The only thing I done is in October I went to Japan on a 5-day R&R. They paid for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was over there for 5 days and then come back, and then we dug some more, and then we done some training, and then they put us on a ship to come back to San Francisco.
When did you leave Korea?
I left it on the 12th day of November and got back to the States on
53.
53.
Okay.
Got back to the States in the first day of December. I got back to the States.
Were there any Korean people working for you?
Not directly, no. The only one we had was the Chigga Bears that brought the ammo to us when we had a need, and we had a sergeant in charge of us, and so the only thing we had to do as PFCs to make sure the weapons were clean, the weapons were to fire, and do our watch. The sergeant took care of whatever we needed, to see rations, stuff like that. That was his whole priority, to make sure that everybody there was taking care of themselves. That was it. And the sergeant actually worked, and he didn't sit around and with his thumbs. I mean, he actually worked. He got us everything we needed. So
You said that you've never been back to Korea since then.
that's right.
Do you know anything about Korea now? Their economy, their democracy?
The only thing I know, they're making cars for us. I think their economy is better, but I still think that we have armed forces over there, and I think there's still things going on that shouldn't be going on. And I think it's probably top secret. But I still think, in my own mind, that North Korea, as bad as they are, and what they want to do, is just like Russia. I think if they think that they can get their finger back in there, and I think when our presidents have been strong enough that they come to realize if you do something, we're going to take care of it. And so that's the only thing that I'm saying. I don't know what this one we got going in there, what he'll do, but I do know what Trump would have done. I think we went back and realized what Eisenhower done and what Truman done to them people. I believe Trump would have done the same thing, but I don't know what Mr. Biden will do. But we'll have to wait to see him in his office. But I truly think that we are still got people over there in Korea that North Korea wants to be part. I know that they've talked about, and I know this, and so I'm praying God will take care of that part of it.
Thank you. Do you know the rank of Korean economy now in the world?
No, I don't.
It's the 11th largest economy in the world.
Is that right?
Can you believe that?
Yes,
Why?
because of the economy is helping them and them helping us.
But U.S. has been helping so many different countries a lot.
Yeah.
We poured the money to many, many different countries,
In
but
this-
there is no country like South Korea, number 11 in the world. Can you believe that? It's the size of Indiana. We don't have drop of oil from Korean soil,
Yeah.
but they now become 11th largest economy in the world. Had you ever thought that Korea would become like this today? When you left Korea,
No.
1954.
No. Because of I don't know that they do the same things they did that day. That most of what I've heard was I was told what they did. Okay, how they harvest their stuff and stuff like that. Because we didn't get out into the rice fields and stuff back there like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so many people have said that was I've been around. Well, I was out there. They had to do all this by hand and all that. And I presume now that they probably got machines and stuff like that instead of, and they're still probably over there like it is in the United States. There's probably still poor people. And this people's going to have to do what they did back 2,000 years ago. I don't think they forget that training.
South Korea.
Korea has modernized.
Yeah,
They were not modernized when we was over there.
exactly. That's the transformation made by you because you fought there, and then South Korean people learned from United States, and they accomplished rapid economic development. It's a miracle on the Han River.
Yeah, well,
That's
like I
what
said,
people say.
Yeah, I'm just saying, times have changed,
Yeah.
and our government has changed.
But why is it called forgotten war? Why? There are such good. You are the chaplain, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the John chapter 1, 36, Nathanael said, "What good can come out of Nazareth?"
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, oh yeah. Then look what come out of Nazareth.
Yeah. What good can come out of Nazareth?
Yeah. What could come out of Korea?
Yeah, exactly. That's my question. What good can come out of 1950 Korea?
Well, I think probably the reason I think it's an unknown war. It was not a war that was really bragged about, paper-wise. I think it's forgotten about because when the people come back, there was nothing said to them. They didn't do like they did in World War II, and they get the guys come back and they had to go back to work. A lot of it, I think, is each individual has come back, and now all of a sudden the Korean War is being taught, and it's become a subject of if it's not a welcome war, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I don't
So-
think Vietnam was welcome either, but I'm just saying the Korean War is probably a lost war.
But if you look at the World History book of the United States for high school, you can find that there are a lot talking about Vietnam War, but not really about the Korean War. That's why my foundation is using this interview and write it as a curricular resources lesson plan so that teachers can use.
Yeah.
So they will talk about you, okay?
No,
That's why we are doing
I'm
this.
proud to have been able to talk about that country.
Excellent.
I realize we probably get a lot of rice from that country.
No, not much rice. U.S. is the biggest producer of the rice.
Well,
But the Koreans export vehicle
yeah.
and cellular phone, Samsung, and LG refrigerator, microwave, things like that. So
Well, they brought people in there to help people. And I think the United States, and they have that. Well, I think before the Korean War, there were probably people coming to this country to learn and went back there.
Yes.
And I think this is where your country has come more to increase and get where they're at. I'm surprised they're at 11. The way they've worked. I mean, the people has worked. The government has listened to what the people said. That I think,
So
and this government here has got to listen to the people in this country.
Yes.
And then I think sometimes they've quit listening.
So you said that you've been serving as chaplain for how many years?
Well, when I retired from the military.
When was it?
In 1973, July the 31st. I got called into the military, into the service in the Marine Corps. I was in a Baptist church in Okinawa, where one of the places I was stationed, and I got called by God himself to preach to the gospel. And I didn't do anything until I got out of the service, because the Marine Corps never had their own chaplains, and they never had their own doctors. That was the Navy part of us. We were landing force of the Navy. And so when I got back, got out of the service, retired, got my little home, I went across to the Baptist church, and God said, well, okay now. So I pastored the church back there. In fact, I pastored 3 churches back in Missouri. Come out here and started pastoring the church here. And this disaster relief come up. And they wanted to know if I wanted to go out on disaster relief. We were building houses, we were building churches, so the church and I got in an argument, and so I resigned from the church. And North American Mission Board called me in 2004 and said, Willard, would you like to be a chaplain? I was ordained in Missouri as a pastor in 1973. 74, I was ordained as a pastor and minister in the Southern Baptist.
You mean 1974?
74, I was ordained as a pastor, and so then I resigned the church I was pastoring, and so the mission board out of Atlanta called me up, wanted to know if I wanted to become a chaplain. Okay, I said. So they said, we're going to send you 50 questions on the internet. You copy them off, you fill them out, send them back to us. Well, I don't go to the computer, my wife did. And so thankful I couldn't put God is the creator. I had to come up with the whole statement. Each one had a statement. I sent it back, and I was commissioned as a chaplain in 2004, late in 2004. And I went on disaster relief from Texas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Charleston, South Carolina, Buffalo, New York, Wisconsin, Missouri, Arkansas, where the trees and stuff were fell out on people's houses, where houses were blown away. And then I came back, and a little small church I started going to out there, and then I started going to these VA meetings, and I joined, I think, the Korean veterans. I joined them. It's been about 5 years ago, I think I joined. When Carl left, and I come down, and I've been their chaplain. I'm a chaplain for FRA, which is the Fleet Marine Corps Reserve. I'm a chaplain for and also for FRA. So out of the whole organization, I belong to every veteran group in this county. But I'm a chaplain for 3 of them. For the Marine Corps League, I'm a chaplain. So I'm actually, they use the name chaplain when they bring somebody in. Normally they bring somebody in as not a pastor. That's in every organization. Most of the time they're not a pastor.
Yep.
They're fortunate when I came in and took this, I am a pastor. But I'm also a chaplain by being commissioned as one. So, and that's what I'll be until the good Lord calls me home.
Yes.
But I'll be with these groups. I tried to do everything I can to let people know who we are. Biggest thing is happening us to right now. This virus has scared everybody, and so. But I appreciate being able to, let the people know who we are.
In the history of 20th century of human society, there is no war like the Korean War because it's been already 70 years.
Yeah.
After official ceasefire, but still this war has not ended and has not been replaced by the peace treaty. What do you think about it? And why is it? What is the will of God on the Korean War? Why is it lasting so long and we are still finished?
Well, my opinion, okay?
Yeah.
The United States have left God. we are not. We have already, our Congress has already said it's all right for two men to sleep together, two women to get married. Mm-hmm. It's all right to kill people, and abortion. Every one of these, according to the Old Testament, is a abomination unto God.
Right.
Why should God help this nation until we can get some people in where they belong, mm-hmm. turn to God, and start getting this nation back to God? We've tried every place.
What does that have to do with the Korean War?
Why does it have to do with the Korean War?
Yes.
It's because of politics.
So you're saying that American politics so corrupt so that Korean War has not finished?
Well, part of that is also North Korea don't want it to end. Mm-hmm. Even though Trump talked to the man, mm-hmm. I hate to say this, but I think the man is two-faced that he talked to. He said one thing out of one side and another one.
Got it.
And until that man is replaced, or at least God gets hold of him, mm-hmm. but this nation, number one, has got to get back to God. And I don't care who in this world knows it. I'll say it to their faces.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we got to get these people, the leaderships of these countries, to realize, and Russia's not going to quit. Russia's two-faced. The only thing he wants is power. And now he's building more missiles. So until that stops, until God, and you're going to have to be up to the Lord Jesus Christ. And human beings get together. And I don't believe that man in North Korea is ever going to do that. Because some of them don't believe there's a God.
Pastor, this year is the 70th anniversary of the breakout of the Korean War.
Yeah.
What would you say to the Korean people in this 70-year-old long war?
I tell them congratulations for what they've accomplished in the years and continue to accomplish it. In fact, I think we got missionaries coming from Korea to the United States. Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of the ratio of the number of missionaries out of the total population, South Korea is number one country sending missionaries to all other countries.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. They used to didn't send, but now they do. Yep. And that's something I've learned. But then we've got other missionaries from other places coming in here.
Yes.
But the concept is, what are they doing? What are they teaching?
Yep.
I know what Korea's teaching.
What is it?
They're teaching Jesus Christ.
Gospel.
Yeah.
Good news. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But some of them are teaching something different.
I know. Yeah. That's the world. Any other story that you want to leave to this interview about your service as a Korean War veteran?
I'm just saying I'm proud I got to serve. And I'd serve again. Even at being 89 years old, I'd serve again.
I'll call you again if there is another war.
Yeah, well, I don't imagine they'd take me. But anyway.
Just kidding, but thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your story with me and for this interview. And thank you for serving as chaplain and pastor for the community here.
All right.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.